Hey everybody, this is Kevin Steinhauser tonight looking at SAT Writing and Language Test Prep. So a lot of you will be taking the SAT on November 2nd. That's coming up already this Saturday. If you have not seen our 3 previous SAT streams, and if you are a Fiveable member, you can go check out any of those replays. We did 2 math last week. Last night we did a reading stream, and tonight is our final one, which is our writing and language stream. So let's go ahead and jump in. As always, if you have any questions, anything that you want to make sure we talk about tonight, go ahead and actively use the chat. And also we have ask a question if you want to guarantee that I see it and answer it directly tonight. So those are your 2 tools to make sure you're engaged and getting away what you want from this stream. See, Sabrina, welcome to the chat. Anyone else, feel free to just interact with us here tonight as we're getting set up, kind of going forward. So today we're going to be looking at SAT Writing and Language. It's the second portion of the SAT. Yesterday's stream we went over the reading portion. So that was 65 minutes, 52 questions, 5 passages. You read them, you answer comprehension and analytical questions. This one's a little bit different. SAT Writing, you are getting into the mind and the mindset of an editor. So you're going to actually be looking through 4 passages that are somewhat flawed, and you're going to be making changes to them through multiple choice. So let me go ahead and just dive right in. Flip over to the slides. Again, if there's any questions that you have tonight, make sure you do ask them before you leave. So the first half of the slide, or the stream tonight, we'll be talking about what exactly is on the SAT Writing and Language Test. It's section 2 of the SAT. And then what to do, like how to make sure you're really approaching these questions successfully, kind of just theory talking through it. And then we'll start to deliberately practice here at the end. So I'd like everyone who's active and engaged in the stream to answer the questions before I show you the answer. And let's just see how we do for some deliberate practice. There are 2 ways to study for the SAT, especially when it comes to the reading and writing section. The first thing you can do is know what's on it and practice, just like we're going to do tonight. And then the second thing you can do to study is look at the questions that you missed and deliberately go back through those and try to figure out, no matter how long it takes, why is the correct answer correct. That's when you actually learn something new, is when you get something wrong the first time, but you learn and you understand, okay, I know what it takes to get this type of question right next time. A couple housekeeping things here before we get too far. There's 2 big SAT dates this year, 2019, that are left. Like I said, one is on Saturday. Some of you, I'm sure, are taking that one because that's why you're here tonight. And some of you are just here more proactively. You know SAT is going to be part of your year. The next big date after Saturday is December 7th. So that's just about a month and a week away. So it will be here before you know it. And then obviously there's some more streams. I'm sorry, not streams. There's some more tests, national test dates in 2020. A big one's in April. Now, what I highly recommend is make sure you give yourself as many opportunities at this SAT thing as you can. So the first time through, you want to set a personal best, but then the next time through, you want to break your personal best. So as much as you prep and prepare, nothing's really like game day. Even if you do a full-length practice test, your energy's a little bit different, your mind's just a little bit different. You might be super focused, you might be like super stressed. Whatever the case is, give yourself as many takes as you can. So you want to start to take this SAT, maybe 11.2, maybe 12.7 if you're already signed up for those. If not, look at the first one that you can take in 2020. Give yourselves a few reps here. Your skills will continue to improve, but also you'll hone in, you'll fine-tune your craft of just being a test taker. Test taking is a big part of SAT. Quick note here before I go any further, a lot of people take AP Language their junior year, and obviously SAT is taken by a lot of juniors. So if you're a junior in these classes, I wanted to show you a couple things to work on. So our upcoming AP Language streams are all here. This is just for the next week. Every Monday we're doing weekly current events. That's just good to know to build up your background knowledge. You want to be a citizen of the world. And then a couple other things. I'm not doing a session tonight or even this week on the SAT essay, but my AP Language team has many streams on rhetorical analysis writing. So if you're interested in what the SAT essay is, that's optional. Some people sign up for it, some people don't. It doesn't necessarily default you to take it, so a lot of people don't take the SAT plus essay. But if you do, check out our rhetorical analysis streams. If you can successfully write a rhetorical analysis essay, AP language and composition style, you can absolutely do really, really well on SAT essay. All right, let's go ahead and jump into talking about the SAT writing and language test. This one's a little bit shorter compared to the one we talked about last night, the reading test. So last night we talked about the reading test was 65 minutes and 52 questions in 5 passages. Well, here it's almost half the time, 35 minutes, 44 questions. So not significantly less questions, but significantly less time. Finally, there's only 4 passages instead of 5. So you will be going briskly through that. Now, 44 questions in 35 minutes seems like ridiculous. It seems like that. How can I answer more than a question per minute? But compared to the reading test, this one actually is more doable. Sure, not everyone finishes, but a lot less students finish the reading test than finish the writing and language test. Just because you're editing as you go, you don't have to do as much flipping back and forth. And secondly, the texts are just easier to read compared to compared to the reading test. So you still want to have a certain mindset as you're approaching the writing and language test. But no, we want to go fast, but we're not going to have to stress out about time nearly as much as we do on part 1 of the SAT, the reading test. So let's talk about each of the passages. They're shorter than the reading passages. If you were with me last night, we said they were between 500 and 750 words. On the writing test, they're 400 to 450 words. So they are significantly shorter, and they're just more relatable topics. So they might be about history, careers, science, etc. And they're just a lower lexile. They're easier to read than the reading passages. And that makes sense because this test is not testing your comprehension or even your analysis. It's testing your skills as a writer, which is kind of weird that they're doing that on a non-essay, right? They're testing your skills of a writer by looking at these skills here: organization, sentence structure, punctuation, verb tense, flow of language, and then there's still going to be infographics, which are charts and graphs. So the way that they do that is they give you a text that's flawed, and they ask you, okay, what should the change be? A, B, C, or D? A is almost always going to say no change, and I'll show you what the questions actually look like in case you haven't done some practice rounds before during the second half of the stream. So do I keep it as it is, or do I make a better change, either B, C, or D? There's always just going to be one that's best, so we'll talk through that for these different types of questions. We're going to run through an entire passage tonight, so we'll get to exactly 11 questions. Again, just to make sure we're on the same page, there's 4 answers. A is, do we leave it as it is written in the text? There'll be something that's underlined. Is that what we keep? Or here's what I would replace the underlined portion with: B, C, or D. You choose which one makes sense. Things that you're keeping in mind are, does it make sense grammatically? Does it make sense with punctuation? And the harder questions, but maybe the more important questions as just us as writers and thinkers, does it flow? Do the ideas flow from one to the next? So I have to read every single word of the passage in order to see the flow. This one's a little bit weird because if you're with me on the reading test, we talked very clearly about the pros and cons of reading the questions before the passage. But this time it's a little bit different because you're going to see questions as you go. And yeah, this PowerPoint will be available. I'll link it to the replay slides, so you can absolutely go back and see any slide. I just saw someone had a comment there. All right, but last night we talked about the pros and cons of reading the questions before the passage. Writing a language is a little bit different because you are seeing questions as you're reading. So here's what I want you to do this time. Read every word. Don't jump to question 1. And I promise you, so many students that I talk to or that I meet or that I even teach, their habit or their like gut instinct says, just go to the questions. We've got 44 questions in 35 minutes. But I need you to read every word because you're not going to get every question right. You're not going to maximize your score without having a strong comprehension and understanding of the flow of the text. So I'm starting, but the minute I get to a question, I finish the sentence that it's in, and then I see, okay, can I answer this question yet? The only time I can't answer the question is if it's a big picture structure or organization question where I have to keep reading to understand the text, to understand like the flow of the text. For I'd say 9 or 10 out of the 11 questions per passage, you can simply answer it immediately. So you'll read 3 sentences, you'll see a big number 1, something will be underlined. Finish that sentence, and then just as you're in the zone, okay, A, B, C, or D, which one best fits into that underlined portion for comprehension of like understanding of the text or grammar or punctuation. Most of them, you're just going to read the sentence, take a minute, figure out what the answer is, and move on. And when I say take a minute, I really mean like do this as fast as you can, but do questions at a time. Don't do what so many people tell you to do. Start it and come back to it. I don't want you to worry about, oh my gosh, I have 4 things I started I need to save time for. Maximize your time. So I want you to have some time to practice, and we'll talk about some resources tonight. But if you have 4 passages and you have 44 minutes, and you have 35 minutes, 44 questions, you have 8 minutes and 45 seconds per question. Oops, I said that wrong. 8 minutes and 45 seconds per passage. So that's less than a minute per question. What I'm saying here is you've got to go quick, but also know when to cut your losses. You're in the zone. You don't have time to go back and refamiliarize yourself with passage 1 at the very end of the test. That's not the best use of your time, actually. So take that time, get that feel for, okay, 8 minutes and 45 seconds to answer 11 questions, reading every word. That's our goal here. Let's take a quick pause for a question that came up. All right, Harrison asks, if I do really well on the PSAT, but not as well on the SAT, will it make a huge difference in my college acceptance? Do they even see my PSAT scores? So every college is different, but here's what I would generally say. Colleges only look at SAT. From my experience, from most colleges where my students go, PSAT is literally called the practice SAT. So PSAT, it's great if you are doing well on that, because that is an indicator or a preview that you are going to do well in the SAT. The skills perfectly align. So if you do well in the PSAT, you are on track to do well in the SAT. Now, if you have a bad day on the SAT, it's okay. Take it again. Now, granted, it costs you a little bit of money, but it's absolutely worth paying for as many reps as you can to maximize your score, maximize getting to the college that you want, and getting some scholarships. So absolutely all in on the SAT here. It's a good question. It's a really common question. PSAT is great. It's a practice round. You'll see exactly what to expect, but ultimately it's all about the SAT. Guys, keep any questions coming that you have tonight. So thanks, Harrison, for the question. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. I've been talking about this a little bit, so we're not going to belabor the point again. Read quickly, but read every word. Again, so many people's gut instinct is to like skip to the question. You'll get some of them right, but you will not maximize your score because you will not get right the big picture comprehension organization questions if you don't understand the authentic flow of the text. All right, so if you were with me last night, and I know some of you saw the replay, we did a practice reading passage from this source. So this is linked here, and again, the slides will be linked to the replay. But you can easily Google official practice test SAT. One of the first hits on Google will take you to collegereadiness.collegeboard.org. There are 8 full-length practice tests. Use them until you've used them all. And then I said this yesterday, Khan Academy has some great extra practice as well. Exhaust those free College Board aligned resources before you purchase a big practice test book, because the practice test books are nice, but A, they cost you money, and B, they're not always quite as perfectly aligned to the SAT as these official practice tests. So that's where we're going to be pulling our practice from today. So we're on schedule to finish well before our hour mark. So again, if there's any questions, we definitely have time for them. Let me know. But here's what I like to do. Anyone who's live with us in the chat, as I read and we get to a question, we're going to pause. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to just throw into the chat, what do you think it is? A, B, C, or D? And then that'll help me to see, okay, which ones do we all have? Which ones should I slow down a little bit to explain? But in general, I want you to see the type of questions and see my thoughts and our thoughts together as we're tackling all 11 of these questions. So let's go ahead and start looking at the first practice passage from SAT Practice 1, which we just got online, a free resource here. So always look at the title just to key you in on the topic. So the title is Passage, Way to Go. And if you're really looking closely, that's a pun here, way to go. So way, we're talking about like the grain or the type of food that we're looking at. So the first word I see here is Greek yogurt. So it's signaling, okay, yeah, this is going to be about food, at least in some capacity. So let's read. Now look, the first two paragraphs do not have a question. They do that intentionally. This is a test that's meant to be read. So don't jump to the third paragraph where you see a big bold number 1. Let's read this, and then we're just going to pause when we get to the big bold number 1. Let's read. Greek yogurt, a strained form of cultured yogurt, has grown enormously in popularity in the United States since it was first introduced in the country in the late 1980s. From 2011 to 2012 alone, sales of Greek yogurt in the United States increased by 50%. The resulting increase in Greek yogurt production has forced those involved in the business to address the detrimental effects that the yogurt making process may be having on the environment. Okay, compared to last night's passage or any SAT reading passage, this is a much more doable, understandable text. So it's about Greek yogurt. So sometimes you'll have really random topics, but again, we're understanding the flow. They're always going to be nonfiction for SAT writing and language. Okay, before I go to the first question, let's see one of your questions. All right, this is from Naomi. Should we always change a sentence from passive voice to active voice? Or does it depend on the pattern pre-established in the passage? That's a really good question. And to be honest, Naomi, you're not going to get a lot of questions on active versus passive voice. I actually can't remember how many I've seen like on SAT official practice tests, but that's not a very commonly assessed question. What SAT actually is testing you is not active versus passive. It's exactly the second half of your question, following the pattern pre-established in the passage. So really, you just got to look at everything that's come before it. That's why we're reading every word and see, okay, is this written in active voice? And if so, I'm just going consistent. Think about it this way. SAT is all about consistency. So that's not just with active and passive voice. That's with verb tense is a big one, or just parallel structure questions. They're all about being consistent. So we can't answer the question without looking around for how the writer is writing everywhere else. This is what I tell my students a lot. If it's not underlined, I can't change it. Even if I'm like, oh, I wish I could do it because I would have a better way to say something. Nope, it's locked in. The only thing you can control is what's underlined. So you have to make it consistent with what is basically locked in. Good question, Naomi. We got one more question that popped up from Harrison. Tips on answering questions if we're guessing. Okay, I'll say like A if you're blindly guessing, and then B if you're like using process of elimination. So if you're blindly guessing, if you like literally don't understand what the question's asking, or if you literally ran out of time, use the same letter every time. That's the only tip I have there. If it's a blind guess, just keep guessing B or whatever your letter is. And now if you're using process of elimination, that's the goal, right? So you don't want to take super long, get what I say sucked into a question. However, you do want to like use process of elimination, take your best guess and move on. So basically, process of elimination is my number one strategy here, I guess. If you are like narrowing it down to two options, hey, that's a lot better than blindly guessing. So just keep that in mind. Knock out the ones that you know are grammatically incorrect. Maybe narrow it down to 2. That happens a lot with SAT writing. Okay, I don't know if it should be a colon or a semicolon. I can't remember, but at least I know it's one of those 2. I've got a 50-50 shot. So that's my number 1 and 2 strategy. Use the same letter if you're blindly guessing, but more importantly, try not to blindly guess. Quickly use process of elimination and move on. Sabrina, I see your question about punctuation. I definitely want to cover that tonight. So let me save that actually for when we get to a question on punctuation. Now I see that you mentioned the dashes. So Sabrina's question is, what is the difference between a semicolon and a dash? We're going to save like really unpacking that, but I see why you would reference it now, because we already see 2 dashes. So I'll address that really quickly. The first sentence has 2 dashes in it. If it has 2 dashes, the information inside the dashes, think of them as like in parentheses. Parentheses and hyphens or dashes are basically the same thing here. I can read the sentence without it, and it still flows. It's an independent clause. It's extra information. So let's look at that. Look at the first sentence with me. Greek yogurt has grown enormously in popularity in the United States. So that sentence flows. So the dashes are extra information. You can't, this is a big SAT question. If you don't know this, you're automatically going to get the next point correct. There cannot be 1 dash without it being closed off by either a dash or a period. It's almost always going to be closed off by a dash. You're never going to see dash comma, dash semicolon or colon. You're always going to see dash something dash. That's like a period. The only exception is if it's at the end of the sentence, if that extra information has a dash information, and then instead of having a dash, it's going to have a period if it's at the end of a sentence. So again, it's going to have dash, dash, or dash period. Let's talk a little bit more about semicolons later, so I'll kind of formally answer your question more then. But thanks for the questions, guys. Keep coming, keep sending the questions in. Let's make sure everyone understands. Any question you have, please let me know. But I'm just running through this passage, so I think that's the best way to do it. We'll kind of stop along the way to talk about them. Now we're in this is actually still the second paragraph. The end of the second paragraph is where our first question lies. So let's keep reading here. We get to number 1. Once I read, I'll give you 30 seconds to put in A, B, C, or D. What answer do you think it is? No shame here. You're totally allowed to be wrong. I tell my students on this stuff all the time. If you're wrong, that's actually the opportunity for learning. If you're getting all 11 out of 11, authentically, you might not need to be here tonight, right? Like the whole point of this is that we need to figure this out together. We need to do a little practice together. So no shame if you're wrong, but let's really think about this. Fortunately, farmers and others in the Greek yogurt business have found many methods of controlling and eliminated most environmental threats. Given these solutions, as well as the many health benefits of the food, the advantages of Greek yogurt outdo the potential drawbacks of its production. Now, so you see the big number 1, you see it underlined. Our options here are outdo, defeat, outperform, or outweigh. So don't give A any extra weight. Just because it's the one that's in the text doesn't mean it has any more likelihood of being correct. Each of these 4 are equally valid. 3 of them are going to be incorrect. 1 of them is going to be correct. What do you think it is? Go ahead and throw that into the chat. A, B, C, or D? Can I make it bigger? Let me zoom in and let's see if that'll work. That's a good question. It's going the wrong way. How's that? Yeah, that's a little bit better. All right, so all right, I could press present too, but that slows me down because I keep toggling back and forth so I can see your chat. But good thought there. Okay, so let me know if that's big enough because I can make it bigger as well. All right, let's see what you all put. Most of you said D. Thanks for your engagement tonight. Let's see what SAT says. Guys, I put the answer in the top right corner if you didn't quite see that changeover. So answer D, outweigh. Now we all got it right. It's just word choice. We absolutely got it. That's one of the easier word choice questions here. So let's actually just keep going through. Now, I do want to make a quick point about timing. Sure, it might have taken me like 45 seconds, like if I'm really timing myself, to read those first two paragraphs. But honestly, guys, how long did it take us to answer outweigh? We all got it right, and it took us no more than 10 seconds. So reading every word, taking a quick pause to answer, fill in the Scantron, and let's just keep on moving. All right, now, when you see these numbers in brackets, that's an SAT signal that this paragraph might be out of order. You are going to have a question that asks you in some capacity to rearrange the sentences. And I will be honest, that is very annoying. It's very annoying to like be in a high stakes testing environment and read a paragraph out of order. So just know, okay, I see the number one, like it's not the bold number one that has a question associated with it. It's number one in brackets because they're numbering the sentences. This is a little weird and confusing, but that's why we're going through this tonight, so you're not like thrown off by all these little like styles of numbering. So when you see a number in a bracket, eventually you're going to be asked to move one of the sentences around. So really pay attention to flow. Now, hopefully you all are good enough readers to see, okay, as I'm reading this, it seems like the flow's a little choppy. Maybe you even would say, man, I would put sentence 3 after sentence 1, not after sentence 2. So if you can kind of get in SAT's head as you're reading, like, hey, I wonder if they're going to ask me to move sentence 3 because it seemed out of place. That's what I want you thinking as you're reading. So no, these are flawed texts. But let's go ahead and read as it's presented to us, and then we just know there's going to be a question coming that says, hey, put them in a different order. All right, so let's read. The main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey as a byproduct. Because it requires up to 4 times more milk to make than conventional yogurt does, Greek yogurt produces larger amounts of acid whey, which is difficult to dispose of. Okay, now this guy gets really annoying, like with all these different formats. So look, we have sentence 3, 4, and 5 labeled, but then we have sentence 2 or question 2 underlined and question 3 underlined. I'm going to read all the way to question 2, and let's see if we're ready to stop to answer question 2. So meet me on sentence 3. To address the problem of disposal, farmers have found a number of uses for acid whey. They can add it to livestock feed as a protein supplement. And then sometimes I just stop, and because like A is just as valid as B, C, and D. So what I actually want to do here is just jump to the question. Okay, which choice, this is number 2, provides the most relevant detail? Well, you know what? I want to finish this paragraph before I decide that actually. So I'm going to skip that. I'm going to leave that as like a blank in my mind and go to sentence 5. And I'm going to circle back and see, okay, which one's the most relevant detail here about this entire paragraph. Okay, 5. If it is improperly introduced into the environment, acid whey runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. Now, I know I'm going to have to go to question 3 here in a minute. I'm going to ignore that for now. For content, I'm just going to look at what is the most relevant detail. Throw in the chat what you think the answer is. This one is a little bit tougher than number 1. So I'm going to read sentence 1 and 2 very briefly. Let's just look for what they're about. I'm saying sentence 1 and 2 of this paragraph. The main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey. Because it requires up to 4 times more milk, Greek yogurt produces large amounts of acid whey. It's difficult to dispose of. To address this problem, and again, these could be out of order, which is even more annoying, right? To address the problem of disposal, farmers have found a number of uses for acid whey. They can add it to livestock feed as a protein supplement. I'm going to read A, B, C, and D, figure out which one of these fits into the paragraph the best. And people can make their own Greek-style yogurt at home by straining regular yogurt. So this is talking about A, making your own yogurt. That's not what the paragraph's about. I'm not going to say any more clues. You guys figure this out. Like, you use my style. That's not what this paragraph is about, so cross it out. So B, convert it into gas to use as fuel in electricity production. Okay. C, while sweet whey is more desirable as a food additive for humans. or D, which provides an important element of their diet? I'm heavily using process of elimination. Give you 10 seconds to see if anyone else has anything to throw onto the chat. Okay, we're absolutely using process of elimination to get there. The best answer, a lot of us got it right, is B. So a lot of us were between B and D. Again, my thought is, what is the paragraph about? It's about acid rain, right? And like the environmental problems. So which one is the closest to that? B, supplement and convert it into gas to use as fuel in electricity production. That one is the closest to like the environmental implications of this process. D was our second most popular answer, which provides an important element of their diet. Again, that's just talking about food. We're not talking about yogurt here because we want to know about our diet. We're talking about, or like livestock's diet. We're talking about food here, relating how it relates to the environment. That's what this paragraph's about. All right, let's go to number 3. We already saw it, but now let's look at our choices. Let's read sentence 5 again. If it is improperly introduced into the environment, acid way runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. Now, we got 2 things we're assessing here. 1, do we want to have an apostrophe at the end of waterways? Yes or no? If you know the answer to that, you're already down to only 2 choices, right? There's 2 with the apostrophe, there's 2 without. And then the second thing they're assessing here is verb tense. Remember back to a previous question, be consistent with the whole paragraph in terms of tense. So we got can pollute, could have polluted, or has polluted. Go ahead and throw what you see as the answer, what you think it is, into the text. Okay, a lot of us already have that. Looks like we're all in agreement here. Yeah, this really was easy, right? You should know the difference between waterways and waterways. Apostrophe S is possessive here, and that is not the case. So I'm automatically taking out B and D, and then I'm just staying consistent with can pollute. When I read it the first time, like it sounded right? Like that. My students always tell me it sounds right, and I make them explain better. But there is some truth to that. If it sounds right, if you don't hiccup while reading it, like that's a clue. You're natural like readers and thinkers here. So if it sounds right, double check, but use your gut instinct at times. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, we're going to go to this is the end of the paragraph. So there's one more sentence. This is sentence 6. I have 2 questions with it. So I'll read it, and then we'll answer a punctuation question. Yogurt manufacturers, food scientists, and government officials are also working together to develop additional solutions for reusing whey. Let's go ahead and throw down our answer. This is just a punctuation question. Punctuation questions, you should get every single one of them right. We're going to, once I see what you say, talk about the semicolon versus the colon. In number 4, let's see, 4A, it's hard to see, that's a semicolon, and then B is a colon. So just in case that you were having a hard time like I was seeing it because it's underlined. Okay. You all got it, or most of you got it. It's C. It's just a list. Yogurt manufacturers, food scientists, and government officials. When there's a list, you just have comma separating. But let's take a minute. Let's go back to a question here. So I'm finally fully going to answer Sabrina's question about semicolons. We talked about dashes earlier. Remember, dashes are like hyphens. They surround extra information that you can pluck out of the sentence, and the sentence still flows. Now, I want to talk about colons and semicolons. A semicolon is simply between 2 independent clauses or 2 sentences that could stand alone. So this is actually a full sentence. I ran to the store. Here's another full sentence. I bought a gallon of milk. Now you could say I ran to the store, comma, and I bought a gallon of milk. Or you could say I ran to the store, semicolon, I bought a gallon of milk. That's just fine. So it's two sentences that I'm smushing together with a semicolon. Now a colon, and by the way, commas we're not going to fully unpack because there's so many different uses of commas. You just have to like get well versed in them. They can be used to separate a dependent clause from an independent clause. They can be used like the comma and to join two sentences together. They can be used for positives. There's lots of uses for commas. But let's focus on semicolon versus colon. So semicolon has the floating period, right? And then a comma at the bottom. A colon has the two periods like you'd see like on a digital clock. So the colon here can do one of three things. This is the most common. A colon can come right before a list. That's what you'll see the most. But on the SAT, you'll see these as well. A colon can come before a clause that's a definition or a further explanation. So a colon has many uses. There's going to be times when you could technically put either a semicolon or a colon in your answer. You can put either a semicolon or a colon and it's grammatically correct. For example, that would be like between an explanation. So let's think about this. I was scared. The man jumped out from behind the bushes and screamed at me. Okay, that's two sentences I can smush together with a semicolon, but I can also say I was scared. Let me clarify or explain why, colon, the man jumped out and scared me. So either one are acceptable or okay. I just want you to know that on the SAT, you will never have two acceptable answers. So if a semicolon or a colon would work, you're not going to have both as legitimate options. There's only always going to be one correct answer. So just know that a colon before a list, an explanation, or a definition. If there's more questions, let me know, but it's a really good question. You will not leave tonight, I hope, getting any punctuation questions right, or I'm sorry, you get every one of them right, any punctuation questions wrong going forward. And guys, we're right on track to end a little bit before the hour mark, so you guys are doing really well. We have 7 more questions, but we'll go pretty quick through the second half here. Now, these are the hardest questions on the SAT. I'm on question 5 on the SAT writing and language section because I have to go around and see where the flow best is of these sentences. So I know that I have 6 sentences and maybe I need to replace them for clarity and flow. So let's read question 5. To make this paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed. So let's go back and read sentence 5. If it is improperly introduced into the environment, acid way runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. Now, should that be after sentence 1, 2, 3, or where it is now? Let's just go back to 1 and 2 and let's see. So the main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey as a byproduct. Because it requires up to 4 times more milk to make than conventional yogurt does, Greek yogurt produces larger amounts of acid whey, which is difficult to dispose of. To address the problem of disposal, farmers have found a number of uses for acid whey. All right, I'm going to jump down. This one's kind of hard to see, like with the slides. You kind of have to be able to see everything together. And these do take some time to plug and place. So that's why, A, they take the longest, and B, they are the hardest. So that's why they are number 1, always the most missed questions. But let's look at it. Our answer here, I'm just going to tell you, and I'll show you how it should look. The answer is C, after sentence 2. Here's the actual flow. So I copied sentence 5 here so you can see. The main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey as a byproduct. Because it requires up to 4 times more milk to make than conventional yogurt does, Greek yogurt produces larger amounts of acid whey, which is difficult to dispose of. If it is improperly introduced into the environment, Acid way runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. And then it would be sentence 3, 4, and 6 would be the full paragraph. All right, those are tough, but again, the way you do that is just you kind of like plug and place and see. They do take longer, so don't take too long on them if honestly you're running behind. But ideally, you have time to plug and place and just see, okay, which one has the best flow here. All right, we're going to go to question 6. Now, this is one of the rare sentences that's entirely underlined, and this number 6 is associated with question 6. Though these conservation methods can be costly and time-consuming, they are well worth the effort. Well, let's go ahead and look at the question. The writer is considering deleting the underlined sentence. Should the writer do this or not? There's 2 yeses, 2 no's. So you might say yes, but have the wrong reason and still get it wrong. Or you might say no and have the wrong reason and still get it wrong. But I can't answer this question yet because I have to read the rest of the paragraph. I have to know what the paragraph is about before I know, like, does this belong or not. So I am going to not forget about question 6, but save it for the end of the paragraph. Let's go ahead to the next one then. Nutritionists consider Greek yogurt to be a healthy food. It is, oh, look at this. This is a colon. So this is a good example of what I talked about. I could do a semicolon here or a colon here. Either one's acceptable. This is clarifying information about what's to come before it. Now, just to be clear, one more thing about the colon. This is going to be nutritionists consider Greek yogurt to be a healthy food. That has to be a standalone sentence if I have a colon. I can't say I went to the store and bought colon, milk, bread, and cheese. It would be I went to the store and I bought a lot of items, colon, milk, bread, and cheese. So just to be clear, before the colon has to be a standalone sentence for the colon to be used. All right, I see some of you already jotting down number 7. Go ahead and do that as let's read this sentence again. Nutritionists consider Greek yogurt to be a healthy food. It is an excellent source of calcium and protein. Serves, a lot of you are saying B, let's read it as B, serves as a digestive aid, and it contains few calories. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It contains few calories in its unsweetened low and non-fat forms. Okay, let's see. Most of you put B, and it is B, serves as. That's just a word choice. You just have to be confident. There's no really way to study and learn those other than just like getting comfortable with the English language. That was a natural question for all of us. But now let's look at question 8. And it contains few calories in its unsweetened low and non-fat forms. We're looking at it contains, containing, contains, or will contain. This is a consistency question, a parallel structure question. Okay, a lot of us are putting C, and C is correct. I'm looking back at the verbs above. Serves, contains. Those are parallel verbs. All right, I told you we're going pretty quick through the last few here. And don't forget, we got to go back to number 6, though. So keeping number 6 in mind, but let's go forward with the paragraph. Greek yogurt is slightly lower in sugar and carbohydrates than conventional yogurt is. Blank, transition. I literally read that as transition because I don't want to get the wrong transition stuck in my head if A is not the right answer. So I'm just going to say, okay, what would the word be that I put there? And let's see which one best matches. So blank, because it is more concentrated, Greek yogurt contains slightly more protein per serving, thereby helping people stay satiated for longer periods of time. Greek yogurt, I'm going to read this again as you're typing in A, B, C, or D. Greek yogurt is slightly lower in sugar and carbohydrates than conventional yogurt is. Blank, because it is more concentrated, Greek yogurt contains slightly more protein per serving, thereby helping people stay satiated for longer periods of time. And yes, everyone who had it typed up is correct. The answer is A. Also, blah, blah, blah. All right, now let's look at satiated. This is a word choice. This one's a little bit tougher. Fulfilled, satiated is A, fulfilled is B, complacent is C, or sufficient is D. What do we think? Thereby helping people stay blank for longer periods of time. Okay. Let's finish number 10. I was just looking through your comments, guys. So number 10, yep, A, everyone got it, satiated, like satisfied. But let's go back to, I saw some people kind of chatting about number 9. So also is just to add on. So SAT just wants to use the most precise transition here, but Naomi asked if we could just, let's talk why it's not B, C, and D really quickly. So it's not in other words, because it's not just like paraphrasing the sentence above, it's adding on information. So it's not B. Let's skip down to D, because this is the order that I would cross them out. It's not for instance, because the next sentence is not an example of the previous sentence. Again, it's just adding information. So you use for instance when I'd say, studying makes you do better on tests. For instance, you'll do better on the SAT because you came to this live stream, right? That's an example of the previous sentence. And then therefore is kind of cause and effect, so maybe a little bit similar to D, but this happens, therefore this happens. It snowed, and this is a true story. It snowed in Colorado where I live 4 inches on Sunday night. Therefore, we had a snow day on Monday, the earliest snow day that I've ever had. In October, we had a snow day. So this happened, therefore this happened, kind of like 1 and then 2. Think of it as like cause and effect. All right, if you want me to clarify any transitions, that's a really good thing to make sure that we're gaining confidence in. And then, yeah, we got number 10. Everyone had that one correct. That means we only have number 11 left, and then we'll go back and look at number 6. Let's keep reading. We have one question left here to finish the passage. These health benefits have prompted Greek yogurt's recent surge in popularity. In fact, Greek yogurt can be found in an increasing number of products, such as snack food and frozen desserts. Because consumers reap the nutritional benefits of Greek yogurt and support those who make and sell it, therefore farmers, so that might be wrong, it kind of sounded wrong as I was reading it, sell it, therefore farmers and businesses should continue finding safe and effective methods of producing the food. Okay, A, B, C, or D, go ahead and throw in, what do you think? And Harrison, I used to live in Florida, so this whole snow day in Colorado is, well, I'm still figuring out if I like it or not. All right, guys, and most people are putting B. And B it is. So support those who make and sell it. Farmers and businesses should continue finding safe, effective methods. Okay, now we can't forget about question 6. Now we have time to, or now we have the knowledge to answer this question. So let's really break this down, and then let's see what you all think. Let's read the sentence again. Though these conservation methods can be costly and time-consuming, they are well worth the effort. Should this sentence be deleted or not? Yes, the sentence should be deleted. I'm looking at A. Because it does not provide a transition from the previous paragraph. Remember, the previous paragraph was about like the acid rain and the environmental effects here. So though these conservation methods can be costly and time-consuming, that was how we ended the previous paragraph by talking about some different conservation methods. Yes, because it should be deleted, because it fails to support the main argument of the passage as introduced in the first paragraph, which again was about just Greek yogurt. Here we can go all the way back up real quick to double check we remember the first paragraph. Greek yogurt has grown enormously in popularity in the United States since it was first introduced in the country in the late 1980s. So C says, no, it should not be deleted because it continues the explanation of how acid whey can be disposed of safely. And D, no, it should not be deleted because it sets up the argument in the paragraph for the benefits of Greek yogurt. I think this is the second hardest question. What do you think? I'll give you a second here. A lot of you already put it in. And let's see what we said. D is the answer indeed. All right, so tonight we did a really nice job of looking at like exactly how to approach it. Literally, finish the question. Finish the sentence, jump to the question, answer it as fast as you can, and then move on. So we did that in, I don't know, 25 minutes, like that second half of the session tonight. You just have to do it in 11 minutes. And I don't say that sarcastically. It's very doable. The reading test, if you did not see it in my stream last night, you can check out that replay. But that's where you really have to focus in on some time-taking strategies here. All right, I'll answer any questions that pop up before we leave, and feel free to stay as long as you want. But once I do these questions, we're going to call it a night. All right, if you want to see previous streams, you have to be a Fiveable Plus member. You're going to just go into an SAT section, and you'll be able to quickly find, this will be our fourth stream. I'll get the replay uploaded here tonight. So you have two math that a student streamer did. They went really, really well. We had a lot of engagement with those. Yesterday I did the reading, and today we did the writing. So if you want to look at any of the previous three, it should be really easy to find. Go into your Fiveable account, find the SAT button, and there will only be 4 streams in it. Oh, good question, Naomi. So the passage that we looked at tonight did not have any charts and graphs, infographics. So let's talk about like what to do with that, like if you come across it. We didn't get any deliberate practice. But what I would say is this: you're still going to read to read, and a lot of times they're easy actually. Like a lot of times they're just making sure you can interpret a graph. But sometimes they'll make sure, like, hey, what answer from the graph best supports like the sentence here? So really my only tip, other than like make sure you know how to read a graph, I know that's not really answering a question, but so make sure you have some practice with them, get some practice questions, SAT official practice test on Google, just to see how just to make sure you see how they're laid out. But as long as you can answer a graph or like understand the data of a graph, I should say, you'll be fine. My tip is make sure you're still reading every single word of the passage. Don't think, and this is what a lot of students think, that the graph is only about the chart over here. The text to the left, or like sometimes the graph is like right in the middle of the text, is very valid, or like something that needs to be on the forefront of your mind, even when you're answering infographic questions. Okay, if you have them, can you post the links to the SAT math PowerPoints? Yeah, I'll go ahead and throw this into the chat here once I close out. So you can always just come back into the chat and hit the link. The other way to get those SAT math slides is, again, to be a Fiveable Plus member, hit SAT, and then the slides will be linked. You just have to find the replay. So super easy to find. If you ever need anything from us, don't be a stranger. Just let us know. And we are literally here to just get some good educational resources to you in a very affordable way. So Sue, it's really easy to be a Fiveable Plus member. You literally just have to create an account, and then it'll like take you to payment. Once you pay to subscribe, and I don't always keep up if like the payment method changes, but I believe it's $5. You get unlimited replays. You can see every single replay like from last year or this year from your topic. So if you're in an AP class, go ahead and be a Fiveable Plus member. I'm a teacher for AP Language and Composition, like I said at the beginning. We're doing at least 1, often 2 or more streams per week. Not only do you get to keep coming to those streams live, but if you can't make it live, or if you just want to go back and review, we literally have well over, between the different subjects, a few hundred streams, I think, at this point, that are accessible for that just subscription. So way more affordable than buying like a test prep book. Is just literally, there's more streams than you have time for at this point. So you just are going to start looking at, okay, what do I really want to study tonight or this week? Good question. And definitely, hopefully, it's a great resource. We're trying to make it as affordable as possible, just to, again, get good educational resources to y'all. All right, we got another question. For guessing on how vocabulary, like in question 10, should we follow your 2 tips? Yeah, absolutely. So for vocabulary, you just want to think of it. If you don't know what the word is, don't guess it. Use process of elimination. You'll end up getting, I think, satiated, right? Like that's not an obvious word to a lot of people. But again, go with your gut. Use context clues. Use process of elimination. And obviously, the context clues could come from anywhere, so making sure you're reading every word. All right, everybody, I'm going to log out. I'll get those math slides linked in here for you, and I'll get this replay posted. Hopefully you can come back if you're in any AP subjects. Keep taking advantage of Fiveable. We will be here all year long, and have a good week. If you're taking the SAT on Saturday, good luck, and we'll see you next time.